Have you ever found yourself staring at your phone, realizing another day has gone by without a call from your children, siblings, or grandkids? It's a sinking feeling, isn't it? It can leave you wondering if you've somehow become an afterthought in the very lives you helped shape. The truth is, this happens more often than you might think, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. As we get older, our loved ones get busier, distances feel bigger, and before we know it, silence fills the spaces where laughter and conversations used to be. The good news is, you don't have to accept that silence as your new normal. There are real, practical steps you can take to reconnect with family and friends, and to fill your days with the warmth of companionship rather than the ache of loneliness. In this video, we'll look at 6 actionable ways to combat isolation, renew your sense of purpose, and even spark that phone to ring more often. Whether you're hoping to bring your children closer, strengthen bonds with old friends, or simply discover new communities, these tips are designed to help you feel more engaged and alive. Let's start by looking at the first way you can bridge that gap and rediscover the joy of genuine connection. It's tempting to wait by the phone, convinced that if someone cares, they'll be the one to call first. The reality is, life can sweep people up in ways that have nothing to do with how they feel about you. If you sit back hoping to be remembered, you might find the days and weeks stretching out without a word. One of the most powerful ways to break that pattern is to make the first move yourself, even if you feel uncertain. Sometimes we hesitate because we're worried about coming off as needy or desperate, but genuine connection often thrives when at least one person has the courage to reach out with warmth and sincerity. Think about the last time you received an unexpected call or message. Chances are it left you smiling, feeling appreciated, and maybe even a little lighter. You have the power to create that same feeling for the people you love. A simple phone call doesn't have to be long or complicated. You could share a small story from your day, something that made you laugh or reminded you of a fond memory. You could ask a question about their life, their hobbies, or even just mention something you saw on the news that you think would interest them. In those opening moments, keep your tone light and inviting. You don't have to pretend everything is perfect. Let them know you've been thinking of them. If you get a voicemail, leave a cheerful message that sounds like you're talking to them face to face, rather than delivering a formal report. That spark of genuine care can make it much easier for them to call you back when they're free. If you're someone who's uncomfortable with phone calls, consider sending a short, handwritten note. In a world of instant texts and emails, a letter stands out in a special way. You could jot down a few lines about a favorite old memory that includes them, or something new you've learned in a book or documentary. The personal touch of your handwriting can convey affection that a text message often fails to capture. It also gives family members something tangible they can keep, reread, and remember you by. You might be surprised at how this small gesture can bridge the emotional distance more effectively than you'd ever imagine. Reaching out can also mean stepping out of your comfort zone in terms of technology. If there's a family group chat, try sending a quick hello or sharing a photo from your garden or local neighborhood walk. This lets people know you're active and engaged, and it might spark some conversations. If your children or grandchildren love using social media, consider opening an account or asking for help setting one up so you can connect with them in the digital spaces they frequent. Yes, learning something new might feel challenging at first, but it can also be a wonderful way to stay in the loop with their daily lives and create more opportunities for casual interactions. Another part of reaching out is being mindful of your own expectations. It's important to remember that just because you call or send a message doesn't mean you'll receive an immediate response. Letting go of the idea that communication needs to be reciprocated within minutes or even hours can help you feel more at peace. Family members might get your message right in the middle of a busy day, or perhaps when their phone is turned off. By giving them a little grace and time to respond, you reduce the pressure on both sides. The simple act of putting your voice, thoughts, and love out there can be enormously freeing. You're no longer waiting for someone else to make you feel important, because you're actively taking steps to nurture that connection. You'll also want to be gentle with yourself if your attempts aren't met with immediate enthusiasm. It's easy to interpret a delayed or lackluster response as rejection. In many cases, though, it's just a matter of timing. Your children or siblings might need a day or two to gather their thoughts or find a quiet moment to give you their undivided attention. Rather than jumping to conclusions, it can help to give them a little nudge. Later, perhaps a quick check-in message or a cheerful follow-up. Keeping the door open and your tone upbeat shows that you value the relationship and are willing to work around life's busy moment. Over time, these small gestures often add up to more frequent back-and-forth conversations, which can dramatically ease the sense of loneliness. There's a wonderful sense of relief in realizing you don't have to sit around waiting for others to include you. By stepping forward and extending the invitation, you create a space where genuine communication can happen. Sometimes, it's scary to risk feeling ignored or brushed off, but building or rebuilding closeness often requires that little bit of bravery. It's about reminding yourself that every call, letter, or text is a seed planted in a relationship that might just bloom again. Feeling that twinge of hope every time you reach out is far better than letting the phone gather dust in silent disappointment. Once you start seeing even the smallest signs of a responsive quick text back, a smile in a voicemail, or an emoji on social media can confirm what you may have forgotten. People often do want to connect. They just need a gentle reminder that you're there, waiting with an open heart. Sometimes it helps to step outside the usual circle of family and discover new environments where you can feel that sense of belonging. One way to do this is by getting involved in local community activities or volunteer programs. If you've ever thought about how much you have to offer, your experience, your compassion, your unique perspective, volunteering can be a wonderful outlet for all of it. Whether it's reading to children at a library, helping out at a food pantry, or becoming a friendly visitor to fellow seniors in need, you'll find that giving your time and energy not only benefits others, but also brightens your own outlook. There's a special camaraderie that forms when people come together for a cause. You share stories, laughter, and a common goal, which can create those very bonds you've been missing. You might be surprised at how easy it is to find opportunities that align with your interests. If you love animals, there are shelters looking for people to walk dogs or socialize with cats. If you're passionate about literacy, there are programs that match volunteers with adults who want to learn to read. Many communities have senior centers with activities like art classes, gentle fitness programs, or discussion groups that can reintroduce you to the joy of meeting new faces. Yes, it may take a little courage to walk into a group of strangers, but remember that every friend you've ever made started off as someone you didn't know. After a few meetings, you might discover the seeds of genuine friendship. Another powerful step toward combating loneliness is rekindling old connections you might have let slip away over the years. People move, lives get busy, and sometimes we lose touch with dear friends from decades ago. Maybe it's a neighbor you always got along with, or an old coworker you used to share lunch breaks with. You'd be surprised how many people from your past would love to hear from you. Maybe they've been feeling the same sense of isolation and would welcome a heartfelt call or message. Even if they're not local anymore, the internet makes it easier than ever to reconnect. A few clicks on social media or a quick online search can help you find people you once considered close friends. Reaching out can feel a little awkward at first, but the risk is often worth the reward. Sometimes, a single warm conversation is enough to remind you both of the bond you once shared. If you do manage to reconnect, try to set a date to meet in person if you can, or arrange a video call if distance makes that impossible. Hearing someone's voice and seeing their face can spark memories that go beyond what words on a screen can convey. Reuniting with someone who knew you during a different stage of life can be a wonderful reminder of your own journey. It's like rediscovering a piece of yourself that you might have tucked away. And if it turns out you've grown apart, that's okay too. Even a brief catch-up can give you a feeling of closure or renew your appreciation for the relationships you have today. Along with seeking out community events or revisiting old friendships, it's also essential to take a compassionate look at how you talk to yourself. When your family doesn't call, it's easy to fill that silence with self-doubt or assumptions that nobody cares. Our minds can spin a quiet phone into a loud statement about our worth. But loneliness doesn't have to define you. Sometimes it's just a sign that you're ready for a new chapter of connection. Instead of telling yourself stories about being forgotten, remind yourself that relationships are complex and life pulls people in all sorts of directions. If you notice that you're feeling hurt or resentful, try to approach that feeling with kindness rather than judgment. It's normal to feel disappointed, but it's also possible to gently guide yourself toward a healthier outlook. In doing so, you create space for hope and possibility. Maybe you'll find your place in a local garden club, or become a volunteer tutor who inspires someone to achieve their goals. Perhaps an old friend will pop back into your life, or you'll discover a new passion that opens doors to fresh connections. Every step you take, every invitation you extend, and every moment you allow yourself to believe in a brighter tomorrow is a step toward genuine reconnection. That spark of belief matters more than you might think. It's a quiet affirmation that you deserve to be seen, heard, and valued. When you nurture that belief, it often shows up in the way you present yourself to the world. You stand a little taller, smile a little more, and carry the warmth of possibility wherever you go. It's amazing how sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen when you simply decide you're not going to give loneliness the final say. One path to feeling more connected is to discover new interests that genuinely excite you. When you open yourself up to trying something different, a craft class at the local community center, a light exercise group at the park, or even an online course in a subject that fascinates you, you expand your world in ways that make isolation less likely to creep in. The beauty of exploring new hobbies is that you often find yourself surrounded by people who share at least one passion with you. That common ground can spark conversations and lead to friendships that feel natural rather than forced. If you're on the quieter side, it can be comforting to start with an activity that focuses on a skill, like painting or learning a musical instrument. Sometimes immersing yourself in learning takes the pressure off small talk, and the connections form gradually as you relax into the experience. It helps to keep a spirit of curiosity about everything. Instead of telling yourself you're too old for this or that, consider that every stage of life can offer fresh joys. If your knees won't let you dance like you used to, maybe there's a gentler version or a group class that moves at a slower pace. If technology feels intimidating, remember that just a little practice and patience can open the door to video chats, online workshops, and communities you never knew existed. You might join a virtual book club that meets once a week to chat about a novel or memoir. You may find a gardening forum full of folks swapping tips and photos. Every new interest or skill you develop becomes another reason to wake up with a sense of purpose and excitement. That energy often radiates outward, making you more approachable and reminding those around you, especially family members, that you're still full of life and experiences to share. Another important piece of the puzzle is acknowledging when you might need professional help. There's no shame in talking to a counselor, therapist, or faith leader who understands the unique challenges of growing older. If the weight of loneliness feels overwhelming or persistent, these professionals can offer tools and perspectives you might not have considered. Sometimes just having a safe space to express your worries and grief can be the first step toward healing. It could be that you're holding on to unresolved feelings about your children moving away, or maybe you're still mourning the loss of a partner or close friend. Loneliness can often be tangled up with other emotions, and a trained ear might help you untangle those knots. There are also support groups dedicated to issues like caregiving stress or dealing with the loss of loved ones. Attending a group session can be a relief because you realize you're not the only one experiencing these struggles. Sharing stories, offering encouragement, and learning from each other's journeys can replace that hollow feeling of isolation with genuine camaraderie. Seeking help doesn't mean admitting defeat. In fact, it's a sign of strength and determination. It says you're committed to living fully, rather than simply existing. Some seniors worry about burdening their families by voicing their emotional struggles, especially if the family already isn't calling as often as they'd like. But speaking with a neutral party like a counselor or a supportive friend can be a great way to process those feelings without adding extra strain on your relationships. As you work through the emotions tied to loneliness, you often find that any resentment or bitterness you've been carrying starts to ease. This can pave the way for more open conversations when family members do reach out. It's also worth considering that if your loved ones sense you're in a healthier emotional place, they may feel more comfortable calling and spending time with you. That might sound unfair, because it suggests you're the only one who needs to do the work. Yet relationships can be delicate, and sometimes showing that you're at peace with yourself makes it easier for others to approach you. By seeking help and investing in your own well-being, you're laying the foundation for a different kind of connection, one built on understanding rather than guilt or obligation. You might be surprised at how quickly your children, grandchildren, or siblings respond to a lighter, more open version of you. Loneliness can make you forget how capable and resilient you really are. When you're in its grip, it's easy to feel as though everything is out of your control. In reality, you have more power than you think to shape your social world. Learning new skills, getting professional support, and refusing to give in to the idea that it's too late are some of the boldest, most life-affirming choices you can make. Each day, you decide to put yourself in situations that allow new connections to flourish. You create the possibility of laughter, conversation, and warmth. You reduce the space loneliness has to grow. And the more you invest in yourself this way, the more you remind the people around you, including those family members who don't call as often, that there's still so much in you to love, discover, and appreciate. Another helpful approach is to redefine the expectations you place on yourself and your family. It can feel heartbreaking when you realize the roles you once played, parent, grandparent, provider of wisdom, aren't as central as they used to be. But here's the thing. Your worth isn't tied to how many times your phone rings or how often you host holiday dinners. You have a lifetime of experiences, skills, and memories that can't be erased simply because people aren't checking in as frequently. By giving yourself permission to shift your identity, you make room for new adventures and relationships to thrive. Instead of seeing a quiet phone as a sign of rejection, try looking at it as an invitation to reimagine what this stage of life can be. You're not just someone's mom, dad, grandparent, or sibling. You're an individual with dreams and the freedom to explore them. If that sounds a little scary, it often helps to start small. Think about aspects of your personality you've longed to explore. Maybe you used to dabble in writing poems but never had time to commit to it. Maybe there's a part of you that loves art, music, or even stand-up comedy. The more you engage with these interests, the more confident and fulfilled you become on your own terms. This internal shift doesn't mean you care any less about your family. Rather, it allows you to take ownership of your happiness, so that whether your children or grandkids call once a week or once a month, you're building a meaningful life that isn't solely dependent on their presence. Ironically, this sort of self-reliance can actually bring people closer. When loved ones see that you're thriving, they may become more curious about what you're up to. That renewed spark of curiosity can lead to more genuine conversations. Instead of awkward check-ins out of guilt, your family might truly want to hear about your latest painting class or that local club you joined. On the days when you find yourself slipping into sadness or longing, try a simple practice of mindfulness. Rather than pushing away the loneliness, notice how it feels in your body. Maybe it's a heaviness in your chest or a knot in your stomach. Acknowledge it, breathe through it, and remind yourself that this feeling, like all feelings, will pass. Sometimes, just naming what you're experiencing, telling yourself, "I feel lonely right now, and that's okay," can provide a surprising amount of relief. You give yourself permission to be human, to experience natural emotions without letting them define you. From that place of acceptance, it becomes easier to choose a constructive action, whether that's calling a friend, going for a walk, or revisiting an old photo album with gratitude instead of regret. Cultivating a sense of humor about the situation can help too. Finding something to laugh about, even in the midst of disappointment, gently reminds you that life has a lighter side. Maybe you share a funny anecdote with a neighbor or discover a comedy series that makes you chuckle. Humor doesn't trivialize loneliness. Instead, it offers a counterbalance, a reminder that you can still experience joy and levity even when parts of your life feel out of sync. As you allow moments of laughter to seep into your routine, you might discover they act like a magnet for people who appreciate your warmth and positivity. Throughout this entire journey, self-compassion is your greatest ally. It's the voice inside that says, "I'm doing the best I can, and I deserve love and connection." When you embody that mindset, you bring a certain light with you wherever you go, whether it's a family gathering, a volunteer shift, or simply your own living room on a quiet morning. Over time, loneliness often loses its sting in the presence of that unshakable understanding that you matter, with or without a ringing phone. And sometimes, that very change in your outlook and energy can be what inspires your family to reach out more. Regardless of whether they do, you'll be prepared to welcome any reconnection with open arms. and you'll have built a life that feels fulfilling, abundant, and entirely your own. In the end, bridging the gap between you and the people you love often comes down to small but significant changes in how you approach connection. Taking the first step to reach out, finding like-minded communities, exploring new interests, and showing compassion both to yourself and to others can all breathe fresh life into relationships that have grown distant. By allowing yourself to evolve beyond old expectations, you open a door to new discoveries, meaningful friendships, and the possibility that family members might recognize the light you still carry within you. There may be days when the phone remains silent, but those moments don't define your worth or dictate your capacity to find joy. As you move forward, remember that you have the power to create a life that feels fulfilling, no matter how often your children or siblings check in. Keep planting seeds of kindness, curiosity, and self-compassion, and you'll be amazed at what can bloom. If you found any of these ideas helpful, or if you have stories of your own about reconnecting with family, I invite you to share them in the comments. It's through sharing our experiences that we remind each other we're not alone. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more insights on staying vibrant, purposeful, and engaged at every stage of life. Here's to embracing all the possibilities that come with writing your own next chapter. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.